and welcome. Thank you for joining us today on today's episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. I'm Karen Scott Green,
And I'm Kat Hardrick.
and we are here today with Ursula B,
Hey,
podcast host of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. I
that's
absolutely love it. And
and it's
so,
shift, folks. Shift.
shift, SHIFT, just in case somebody didn't hear the F. For those of you who are listening and not seeing this on the screen, it is shift. And so, Ursula, Black girls getting their shift together.
Yes.
What is the shift?
That is a loaded question, but I have a short answer for it. Just let's just say this from growing up and having some adverse childhood experiences, which was untreated. We could say that, it would have been
Okay.
good to have someone to talk to back then, but back then nobody was trying to do that. We're just trying to make it day by day. And then it will
Absolutely.
present itself as an adult. So I had a lot of ish going on, but when I started to pour into myself and realizing that there's something about healthy mental health, and that was where the shift was, and my mindset changed, and my mindset is still changing. I'm ever evolving. So that's the shift. It's a daily shift.
Okay. All right.
That's
And
right.
so,
It's not a one-time fits all.
yeah,
It's
absolutely. It's
evolving. And so that helped you start your journey with Black Girls Get Their Shift. Like, when did you know that you needed to start Black Girls getting their shift together?
Believe it or not, so some of you all listening may or may not know, I used to be in the dental field.
Mm.
So, yeah, I have a dental background. And so it was very slow because the pandemic was amongst
Mhm.
us. And I was at the computer and I'm having all these downloads on how I wanted my life to shift. And I love and embrace everything about the Black culture, Black women. And I was on the computer. And then I remember I looked up and it said, you know what? You're a Black girl. Get your shift together.
Girl, stop.
I promise you, I heard it in this ear. Because I remember
Uh-huh.
I looked up in the on the ceiling. I said, Black girls getting their shift together. And there you
Mm.
go. It
Get out of
literally
here.
was a
yeah.
download, a divine download. It just came in my head. And it embraces everything about me and women like us. We're Black
Yep.
girls getting our shift
Yeah.
together.
Who are
And that's
having
what
those
it is.
conversations.
Yeah.
And so some of the conversations that you've had, I was listening to your podcast, like you've talked about mother wounds,
Mm.
dating and relationships, mental health,
Boundaries. Boundaries.
Oh,
narcissism.
y'all went deep in the vault. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I particularly was fond of the one about love addictions and generational trauma because
Mm.
we've talked a little bit about some of these things, not about like the mother wounds and dating and relationships, but we've definitely talked about like mental health and parental relationships and generational traumas. So I love that you have dug in to those conversations and you're having those dialogues.
It's
How do you
needed.
come up with your topics of your conversations?
So that's a great question. That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. A lot of the times it's looking within. So when
Okay.
Yeah, so when I have my group therapies that I go to all the time, for instance, the mother wound, I knew I had something going on with the daddy part, had
Uh-huh.
no idea that I had or experienced a mother wound. So a lot of it is just from my own
Mm.
experience and really to challenge myself because I've been taught to quiet my voice. That's a
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
toxic generational cycle that's been presented in home. So how can I challenge myself and be vulnerable enough to speak about this with a coach or expert or someone, an everyday person like us,
That's
and
right.
talk about it, right? And so that's how a lot of topics come up. And I follow several therapists on Instagram, and when I hear something that they talk about, and then I go in a rabbit hole, and there goes my next topic, and there you go.
I know I saw where
Okay.
you
And it
you made a
resonates.
reference. You made a reference to Dr. Deba, D Nina Nebo, Ne in Dr. Mm,
Nidra
Jeez,
Talib.
Talib, and you was like, I don't know if I'm messing up her name right, but I was watching one of your podcasts, and you were just talking about the being an adult, being a parent, being a parent. Being an adult is your time now of parenting yourself. And you
I
know who I'm
love
talking,
that.
girl.
Yeah.
You ain't ready.
Yeah.
You ain't
I love
ready.
that.
You
Yeah.
ain't ready,
Yep.
Ursula B. Look, I did my homework, girl. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I tried to look her up on YouTube. I tried to look her up on Instagram. I'm like, okay, I gotta find her. I don't know if you can remember her name and share it with our listeners as well, but I absolutely love that because it's our time to parent ourselves, to get
Yes.
our and start telling ourselves who should be in our circles, who we need to leave. And I love, like, I just was floored. I took my pencil and paper out because it's so important. And it hit me like, okay, that's an aha. Like Oprah say, that's an aha moment. That's like when
Mm-hmm.
we really need to take that in. I want you to I resonate so much with your topics. I'm a survivor. Mental wellness, Karen and I, we talk about that all the time. So I thank you for being on
Yes.
our podcast because we want to break the stigma of all the
Yes.
negativity around mental wealth, mental wellness. So I love this boundaries. So through my several, I have a team. I call them out. I said we need to do a shout out to all of our mental health professionals. So Dr. Q is another one of mine, and so boundaries. When I was taught to start establishing boundaries, it was really difficult. Can you speak to, because I know you did an episode about boundaries, can you speak a little bit about that so we can empower our listeners about how important it is to establish boundaries and what that truly is? When we set boundaries, what is that really doing for us?
Oh man, that's a great question. So before I establish how that looks and why it's important,
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's important to go back to
Mm-hmm.
realize, well, have I ever grown up with boundaries?
Right.
Mm.
And I realized through the healing work that I'm doing that
Mm-hmm.
I always had an issue with establishing boundaries. And I just came to me. I said, well, I never saw them. Boundaries
Mm-hmm.
were always violated at
Mm-hmm.
home growing up. I mean, it could be something, I hate to say simple, but it could be something as, oh, I'm going to go through your drawer. Oh, well,
Right.
don't say anything. You're a child. I bought this
Right.
home. You know,
Or,
Mm.
or go ahead and give your grandmother a hug. You ain't seen her in a long. That's your grandmama. Give her a hug. But I don't want to give her one.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. So it could go as far as something small as, okay, you're going in
Mm-hmm.
my sock drawer or giving hugs, and then you see how that can look later on if there's
Yes.
any SAs going on, right? And
Yep.
then you quiet your voice. So boundaries are very important, and they're really to protect yourself, because if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have any, and I can just speak on my own experience. Um, again, I was always taught to quiet my voice. So I didn't have any boundaries. So now, how am I going to protect myself? And then I'm
Mm.
being in a victim mode because I don't know. Well, actually, let me back that up, because now I am fully aware. So it goes beyond being a victim. Now I'm being a martyr because I'm fully aware of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. Right.
Right.
So they're very important. And I didn't even know that there were layers to boundaries. You know, you had your
Woo.
red, yes, the red boundaries,
Facts.
yellow boundaries, green boundaries. And I'm thinking, Ernst, this is why the work is so important with healing and wellness, mental wellness, because I always used to think, well, I am setting a boundary. But in reality, they were weak, or they were porous boundaries. And then,
Mm-hmm.
there was right here, they would just cross amongst each other. And
Mm-hmm.
well,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't effectively doing it.
And they didn't have consequences associated with them.
Speak.
what happens when people, because they will cross
Yeah.
those boundaries? How are you supposed to handle that? And who are those boundaries for, them or
Hmm.
yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
Because ultimately, we have to deny access, deny people access to us who
Mm-hmm.
harm us, who are habitual line steppers.
Ah.
We
Pre-
have to. And it's okay to say, I can no longer be in relation with you,
That's
even
right.
if you are blood relation. That's okay. Like, we, I respect that we don't see eye to eye, or I respect that you're not respecting my boundaries. So out of
Mm-hmm.
respect for myself,
Yes.
out of respect for myself, we no longer can be in relation with each other.
It's
And
a
that's okay.
distance. It's a
Yeah.
distance. Mhm.
Exactly. I love that. And it's so funny, Karen, that you said that because I made a post on my personal social media
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it was about stop teaching this younger generation that it's okay to be loyal to dysfunctional and or
Mm.
toxic
Woo!
family members. And I said, that is so true because
Yep.
even if it's a family member, and I share a story real quick?
Absolutely. You
Absolutely.
can do story time.
Story
I know, right?
time. I love you all. This is great. So here's my story. Here's my story time. I have a family member very close to me,
Mhm.
and the boundaries, as you call it, the habitual line steppers. And no, let me keep it real. For decades,
Mm-hmm.
I did not know how to have the boundaries, right?
Mm.
And now I'm at a point, well, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I said to myself, this family member is no longer good for my mental health. And
That's
I would
right.
always lie to myself. And then through my group therapies that I go to, I had learned, well, you can always lie to yourself, but how is your body reacting? Well,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
realize that my blood pressure would go, my body would tighten up, I
Yep.
would
Shoulder.
disassociate. I wouldn't even
Mm-hmm.
remember driving from leaving their house to my house, which is only a
Mm-hmm.
10-minute drive.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? That's it. If I have to be around someone that is literally taking me out of my body, because that's what
Yeah.
disassociation is. It was
Mm-hmm.
functional because I was able to drive home in one piece, but I don't remember to this day. I don't even remember driving home several times. I said, I cannot be around
Mm.
this
Mm-hmm.
person. And then I chose to practice radical acceptance that even because we share the same DNA, we're just that. We're relatives. That is not family
Yes.
whatsoever.
That's
Yes.
Family does not have to be DNA. Family does not have to be DNA. And it needs to be people who love you, who value you, and who respect
Yes.
you. And it should be mutual.
Absolutely.
And we have to learn how to establish boundaries. And unfortunately, this is why fortunately, this is why this podcast and your podcast and the like are very important so
Yes.
that people can learn the tools to say, one, it's okay that we don't know how to do it. A
Yes.
lot of us, it's
Yeah.
okay to be an adult in therapy saying, I need help. Like Karen has even told me times, you need to pull up, you need to pull back, you get too involved, step back, you need to set your boundaries. And we need to hear that. We need to be around people who are able to love on us,
Mm.
love us enough to say, I see for you that this relationship isn't healthy. And I'm saying to you, evaluate it so you can pull back and take care of yourself. And then I'm like, that's why I keep her in my back pocket for. She
Because
good girl.
let me tell you the thing about Kat. She go when she commits to something, she commits to it. She
Does
goes
she?
all in. And sometimes people take that kindness and take her going all in for granted. And
Mm-hmm.
so when she does go all in, people just expect a little bit too much. She's already given 100, then they ask her for 120.
Mm-hmm.
And so and so when you see it, because you're on the outside, it's much easier to see it when you're on the outside, right?
Right.
That's this. I don't think that person let
Yeah.
him or her deal with that on their own. You've done enough, and you've done more than what you should be doing. Just pull back for your own sake for a second.
That girl
That's
be like, you need to
beautiful.
pull up. You need to pull up. This why
That's
I wear
beautiful.
makeup, family. This why I wear the makeup, family. Look,
For those
waterhead.
of
No,
you
I
who are
cry.
listening, Kat is crying again.
We go, you know what? I can see somebody 10 years from now playing all the clips that I cry. But yeah,
Really?
Yeah, she does.
girl.
She loves with her whole heart. She goes in with her whole heart,
Yeah.
and so when she does something, she's given 100. She gives 100, and so people expect that at all times, even when giving 100 is no longer to her benefit.
Right. And
Mm.
So
so boundaries
boundaries.
is very, very, very important. And for me, my story time in setting boundaries, um, through therapy, I had to learn how to set boundaries. And when I ran in
Yeah.
2021, people were telling me that I shouldn't run because I have PTSD. I mean, literally, this sign is people shouldn't do this, but you know that what that means. Now people
Right.
just come to you and be like, you mental, you don't need to. So I'm
They would
healthy
say
enough,
that.
girl. I'm healthy enough to serve this country and have a firearm in my hand, but I'm not healthy enough to govern. Like I would want, you know what I'm saying? So I had to learn how to establish boundaries. And through therapy, I learned that. And I learned that it was one of the hardest things I had to do because for so long I didn't have a voice.
Ah.
Like we talk all the time, but
Ah.
you really don't have a voice.
Hmm.
And so it's either an unhealthy voice where you coming out the gate, right? And like Eminem, you talking a lot, but you really ain't saying nothing, right? Because that's not a healthy way to express yourself. But then when you learn how to, in a healthy way, express yourself, man, it takes so much to do that. And then when you do that, the people that you thought, family or friends,
Ooh.
baby,
People get slain.
what?
They start falling. They start
What?
falling. You know, yes.
Like the
Like,
And you know,
dominoes, you line up dominoes and they just like, you know.
right.
Yeah, and then it becomes so. And I love another thing that you said on your podcast, Ursula B. You said we don't have to be concerned with their feelings. Like when you're establishing boundaries, it's not their feelings I'm worried about. I'm trying to protect my feelings. I can't get mad if you mad that I told you that I don't want to be disrespected by you no more. If you're
Right.
mad, that's not for me to deal with. As long as and I used to always tell my kids that you can say whatever it is you want to say in this world, as long as you say it with respect.
mhm.
So as long as I came out the box real respectful and polite, listen, this can no longer happen. I need for you to respect ABC. And as a result, if it doesn't, I'm going to have to pull back. And then if a person can't take that, that's not for
That's
me.
on
And when
them.
I heard you say that, girl, I was like, boom, I know I can't wait to have her on this podcast, girl. She
I don't even remember saying it. I mean, vaguely, because I talk so much. But you're
mm-hmm.
right. It's not for the. Okay, another story time. This is the mini
Uh-oh.
story time. But I realize, or I'm fully aware that I'm working on these people pleasing qualities that I
Mm-hmm.
have. Again, that was a blueprint that I
Mhm.
saw growing up. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized that because of those practicing and being a people pleaser, parts of me being a people pleaser, that I was that kind of messed up is this. I'm more concerned about
How
how
they're
is
gonna receive it.
exactly. So you know what? I think this is going to be too much for them. I'm just going to swallow my words and play small and put myself back in this box. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
walking around with high blood pressure, hair falling
Mm-hmm.
out, pissed off, um angry. Let's keep it
Yep.
real.
Right.
Angry. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought anger would just be the rah, but I
Yep.
had silent anger, which is
Yep.
one is not better than the next. So yeah, it's and I'm still working on it. I'm getting better,
We
but
Mm-hmm.
I'm
all are, and
still
it's a work in
working
progress.
Yep. I call it
always.
a whip. When I was at Ernst and Young, we used to always say we're work in progress. And so although that it was applied
Mm.
to projects on the job, I started
Mhm.
using that to identify me. I am a work in progress,
Yeah.
constantly trying to improve and better ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And I lose my train of thought. The purpose that I had brought up me running in 2021 was I was sharing about me being a survivor, having PTSD, and a person told me, "Don't tell people that. You shouldn't tell people that." And so here it is. You're putting me back in a box, and
Yeah.
I have said I've been through too much there. It took me double digits to get to therapy. Find a team who are made up of people who are culturally competent to Black
Yes,
women,
ma'am.
and our histories and our family dynamic, especially mine, and not having biological this and biological, I really was raised by a village. And then to have somebody tell me, I got this strength to start telling the world, and now you telling me, no, don't do that. Don't nobody, that's not good. You running
Because
for
you'll make
office, don't
people
do that.
feel uncomfortable.
Yes,
Girl,
Karen. That's
what?
exactly what
Say
I was
that again,
Yeah.
thinking.
sis. Say that again. What?
Because you'll make people feel uncomfortable.
Right. And then so tie what Kara just said and tie back to what Ursula B said. I'm not supposed to care about your
Mhm.
feelings.
But
You
you
Right.
know,
feel me?
as I was thinking about, as we're having this conversation, it's rooted from when we're children because, I'm 54. I don't know what y'all ages are, but um so my childhood was the early 70s, 80s,
Mhm.
and we were raised with the generation that children were to be seen and not heard.
Not
Our
heard.
opinions did not matter. And
Speak when
so
spoken to.
that's right. You speak when spoken to. And also, as girls, we were told to keep sweet, behave, you know, just be a good little girl. And so we grew up to be proper young women, to be, to and what did that do? We didn't speak out when we needed to speak out if somebody hurt us emotionally, physically. We kept it to ourselves because the other thing too was what happened in the house stayed in the house.
Stayed in this house.
Oh, the house, stay in
And
the house.
so
Yeah.
some of us took that into our relationships. What happened in our relationships stay in our relationships. We didn't tell our girlfriends, we don't tell our family members. So we've grown up even into adulthood keeping those things from other people that have hurt us, and we don't let people know when they hurt us,
Mm-hmm.
verbally or whatever, to say how
Yep.
this really impacts me. So we've had this culture of where we're supposed to just just eat those feelings.
And that's why our all of our platforms are so important to break that. I guess people say generational curse or that
And
bad
it
habit.
is.
We evolve and we've learned more. It's just like maybe somebody wasn't a saver and now we're savers, and now we can teach the other people how to be generators. So we have to break
Yeah.
that mindset. My son asked me, "Mom, what's some advice you can give me about being a parent?" And it was the power of no.
Woo!
I
Mm,
said, in my opinion, we need to teach our next generation the power of no. So it kind of leans to what you were saying, Karen, in that if you're not taught, you got to give them the verbiage. You got to give them the words to say. And so don't make your children go like, if I'm granny, don't make my grandchildren come to me if they don't want to. If they
okay.
say, I love her, but I'm gonna love her from a distance, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. Let them feel comfortable because I don't want them to feel like I don't want to do it, but my parents are making me do it. So I'm going to suppress what I'm feeling with my body and let somebody else touch me. So
Exactly.
see, that's the message that I try to say that. And if I can give that to any parent, anyone that's listening to us, give the young people and yourself the power of no and be comfortable with it. Own it. It's your no. Whatever anybody else
Yeah.
feel, that's for them. But what's for you
Exactly.
is to be at peace and loving yourself. And if no is that makes you feel powerful, then you own it and you say it proudly. And guess what? No is a complete sentence.
That's
with
it.
no
Yes.
explanation. None. No,
And it doesn't
period.
matter how the hearer receives it or responds. That's
Facts.
their
I need to
issue.
get I need to get a sign to be like facts.
I was just thinking about when you talking about no. When I was on the campaign trail last
Mhm,
year, I was at this event and I
mhm.
had my hair out because most of the times I used to wear it up in a bun when I was out in the street, and so I had it out and it was curly. And this person who wasn't used to, you know, locks,
Our beautiful hair.
yes, she said, "Oh, your hair is just so pretty." She comes up to me with her hand.
Oh,
"Your hair is
Oh,
so pretty. I just
oh.
want to," and
So I know, right?
I did the swerve and I said, "No, no,
We don't do that.
my hair is sacred.
Hmm.
We
that's right.
no one touches my
Don't do
hair
that.
but my hairdresser and me." And she's like, "Oh, oh," like she was offended.
Mm.
But
See what
that's my
I mean?
personal boundary.
That's an extension of my body. That
Yes,
is my body. That is my body.
that's my personal boundary.
Girl, I was
And
in. Go ahead.
yeah, no, no, just that made her uncomfortable. But that was this hair is for me. It's like touching my body.
And it's
Yeah.
So
yours.
yes,
Even if
but
you
It
can take it off, because I've seen you in person. But just say, because I know it's yours. But just say,
yeah,
even if it's not attached, it's mine,
it's
and I put it
fine.
in a
that's
box.
right.
Don't touch it.
Yeah,
Don't touch
but
it. That is
that's
just
part of like, and you've got to be comfortable with that. No, like
Hmm.
no, you cannot
Hmm.
touch my hair. You cannot touch any part of me. You cannot do anything that
That's
makes
right.
me feel uncomfortable.
And that's the part of the whole re-education and miseducation for people to actually it is presumptuous for you to think that you can reach out and touch someone, period. So that's one whole education piece. The other piece is for people to realize you have to have the power to say, I did not give you permission to
Consent.
touch
ooh.
any of this. Girl, when I've said that plenty of times when people lean, I didn't give you permission to touch me. And then it stops them dead in their tracks, like, permission? Yes, that's a word that you need to learn when you try to engage with all of this.
Yes,
This
Yeah,
is
ma'am.
just, listen, we have to own that. And it's so important for our girls and
and young, yes,
boys.
yes.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
boys, I have sons and daughters, and I always tell people this is not a double standard. Girls
No.
aren't supposed to be, and boys, no. They all need to have the power of no. They all need to have
Mhm.
self-respect and respect for other individuals. And then guess what? We grow up to be adults who
That's right.
respect one
Yes,
another. You know.
absolutely. So
So look,
Ursula, oh, go ahead, Kat.
no, go ahead, because I was about to jump right on Ursula. You go
Oh,
ahead.
at what point did you what was the thing that made you say, okay, I'm ready to do something different and I'm ready to talk to someone who can help me figure out a way to do something different. I'm tired of whatever this is that I'm experiencing and I don't want to experience it anymore.
So I went through some severe work trauma, professional
Mm,
trauma.
Mm.
mm. Oh, you and
Okay.
Kat could talk.
I know, right?
Oh yeah. I'm not that y'all on my podcast and we're gonna chop it up some more.
All right.
Yes, but we're gonna talk offline too, Kat.
Yes.
So, anyways, yeah, I went through some severe work trauma and I was no longer working at this practice, right? And so I felt because I was at this place for so long, I'm gonna keep it really real. I lost my identity. I
Mm,
just
Mm,
existed,
okay.
but I was comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay.
right.
So fast forward,
Hmm. She
I
was
was no
uncomfortable
longer
being
Dysfunctional.
uncomfortable. Wow.
Dysfunctional is functional. Go ahead. People don't
Mm,
realize that.
exactly. I
Yeah.
had all the signs. I
Mhm.
knew physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, the
Mhm.
signs were coming at me. But I said, oh, just get rid, ignore it, and keep going. And then
Mhm.
here we are decades later. So I
Mhm.
was no longer working at that practice. And oh, that's what it was. I had a lump under in my armpit.
Mm.
I said, "Oh my God." I said, "I'm gonna have to go
Mhm.
somewhere." I didn't know. I'm fine, by the way. So I
Praise God.
went to this place. Yeah, thank you, God. And so while I was there, they were giving me an annual, and they said, "Oh, we have behavioral health services." Oh, that's fine. But
Did,
meanwhile, I'm just being real.
but no,
Meanwhile,
how in the world they know to say we got that's God? That was divine, wasn't it?
it was. It's just they were just letting people know. So it wasn't pinpointed towards me. They were just letting
Okay.
people know we have this service available. And so
Mm.
I just felt, I said, you know what? I'm going down this spiral. I did not know who I was. Little did I
Mm.
know that I had already been functioning with depression and anxiety. Well, that work trauma
Mhm.
incident, it triggered it even more and sent me on a downward spiral. And
Okay.
then on top of that,
Wow.
the relationship that I was the most toxic relationship I've ever been in, that ended. So I'm having all this going on. And I said, oh my, I am out of, I'm just feel like I'm spiraling out of control. Talking
Mm.
to someone is not going to hurt at all. So I
Mhm.
went and I thought I was going in there because of this toxic relationship that I was in.
Hmm.
Honey,
You
ah,
started unpacking some things.
What you say, Hunty?
that suitcase was this big. It had nothing to do with that person that I was dating. He was such a once we got past him, he was a non-factor. You fill in the blank.
Right.
It wasn't even about him. Girl, we went all the way back to childhood. He was just a
Mm.
byproduct of what was going on
I
as
was
a
just about to say he
child.
was a symptom. I was about to call him a
Mm.
symptom.
A
Yeah. Okay.
symptom. I like that. It
Yeah.
truly was. And it was so funny because once we got maybe like a year into the therapy, and I realized, I said, I haven't even mentioned the ex's name. So that goes to show he was so far removed from that. And, so that's a long answer roundabout, but that's
No,
really
I
what it
get
No,
was.
it. No,
that's
no, no. That
facts.
was that was perfect because that gives
Uh-huh.
us context of what it was,
Yes.
and then you started getting your shift together because you were moving from that old Ursula B
Mhm.
to this
Mm.
new Ursula who's like, when now you see that person coming, you were like, eh.
That
Actually,
type of
I will
person.
tell you
That's
this. I
mhm.
saw him.
Ah.
Really?
I saw him. I can tell you exactly when. It was in 2017. Dang, that was a long time ago. I saw him at a function, at a work. I was at work
Mhm.
and I saw him, and he was with his new girlfriend. Now, the
Mhm.
I'm a
old
victim.
Ursula would not have given a damn if we're at work. I'm showing out, just going
Uh-oh.
in.
That
I
ain't you.
saw
That
him,
ain't you, B. That ain't you, is it?
girl.
Look
Well,
that
that's
look.
a topic offline. Yes, but no. When I saw them, at first that initial like, oh, I can't believe that anxiety feeling, and then when I
Yeah.
saw his girlfriend, because they were holding hands, so it was very obvious they were a couple. I felt
Mhm.
sorry for her.
Mm.
Old Ursula would have never thought that ever because I thought she's no, she was very pretty, cute,
Mhm.
cutie pie. And I said, I feel really bad for her because she does not know what she probably does. It's just because we've learned to ignore our needs
He
and
may still
wants.
have on his mat. He may have still had on his mask with her.
Correct.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or or he could have gotten help too, ladies, and
That
he
he
could
could have
have
gotten his
a whole new
shift.
perspective. He could have
He
got
could
his
have
shit.
gotten his shift.
Look at
He
her.
said
Let's
no.
not.
Cut it
Ursa
out.
said
That's
no.
you.
We give him way too much credit. He's let's just say this because I'm not a mental health professional, but he had strong, very strong, several narcissistic tendencies.
Mm.
He's not. There comes
Mm.
perfectionism with that, and the amount of
Mhm.
guilt and shame with people who have a lot of. several heavy narcissistic qualities. I don't know what you call it, to admit that there's some kind of wound that takes them off of their. So that's why I felt bad for
Mm.
her. If he did, it truly would be by an act of God, and I believe in God, but nah.
Amen. Amen.
But you
God
know
is
what?
powerful. Mhm.
That's still a boundary because I'm out of rescue mission. I used to, still working on always
Woo.
rescuing people, even if they don't even want to
Yeah.
be rescued. So you know what? That was not my cross to bear, but I did have empathy for her. I did.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a show in and of itself. The women and the men, because I know men who do it too, who like fixer uppers. They like projects, and they have the need to be needed. That's what it is. And I've recognized some people like that, that I know, because you're like, they keep getting with the same kind of person.
The same type.
He's got this
And it's
kind of
not
a
the
job, and
person,
he's got this
it's
kind of a
the issue.
position, but yet he
Yeah.
keeps getting with women who don't have it together. I was like, oh, he likes projects. He likes to fix them up. He
Mm-hmm.
he, because that makes that person feel needed. And so you'll recognize it in friends. You'll recognize it in family members. Like, okay, all right, I see what
Everybody's
that is.
codependent.
Yeah,
That's
They
that
feed off
drama
of one
exactly.
another.
triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Being a rescuer in those drama triangles.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Man, look.
yeah. I have recognized it in folks.
You do too, right? Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
mm-hmm. And I think if people sit back and actually start identifying not like the physical attributes and so forth, but start actually um, evaluating the relationship, the interactions, then
And
you
the
will start
quality,
seeing the
yeah.
types of relationships you have. So
Mm-hmm.
if this person, like you said, is someone you always got to fix, and if it's something, so that's when people say, "Oh, you like a certain type." People just think that means tall, short, whatever, whatever. No, it's how you interact and the types of energy. Some people need negative energy in order for them to feel like they have a purpose in the world, to
Yes.
engage and all of
Yeah.
that foolishness, and that's unfortunate. And that's why we're trying to talk about mental health and mental wellness every single day. So we can start identifying it. So hopefully all of our listeners on all of our platforms will start trying to see if some of this is really some good nuggets, right? We're not just talking about to put our business out. We really want to share this so that people can start saying, I see myself in some of these behaviors. Maybe I can take some of these tools and start
Mm-hmm.
applying them. And the first step I would always encourage people to do, go and find a qualified licensed therapist. Because
Yeah.
as we share our own personal stories of love and loss and grief and laughter and all of that, get a licensed professional so that you can get a team around you so you can get the tools. Because I've had cognitive behavioral therapy and some other names I can't even think of, but I got books in there, plenty of them, to read and learn about that. But I really want to encourage, especially our young people. And this is Suicide Prevention Awareness Week.
It is.
It is. It is. So we want to talk about that and let people know that, you can dial 988 and contact folks, and spread that out. But I don't want to go down the rabbit hole because, Karen, know I will. I want to stay on topic, but I just want to encourage people while we're talking about this to really
Yeah.
get help. And even if you don't think that you need help, go see a therapist anyway. Because like Ursula said, shoot, she thought she was talking about one thing, and girl, that was
And
what,
Yeah.
5 minutes you went down.
you started
Yeah.
unpacking. You realized you was a
Right.
bag lady. You had all these bags.
I had a
Bag
pile
lady.
of clothes right next to me. I'm thinking, where was all of this packed? Where was all of it? And I had been carrying that package, that
Mm-hmm.
luggage around the
Mm-hmm.
entire time. But Kat, can I piggyback on something you said? I love
Absolutely.
what you said about finding a qualified licensed professional. And I really encourage
Mm-hmm.
people. I don't want people to think that going to therapy is always something so traumatic. It can even
Right.
be if you want to learn better communication skills. It doesn't
Yes.
always have to be a big T trauma, even though, I mean, that's what I went in for. However,
Facts.
However,
Me too.
that's why I love conversations with sisters like you all and anyone else on my show, to show that we can have these conversations, and it's not
Yes.
about airing out our personal business how we always were
Right.
taught. That comes with the guilt and shame. That it's not even
Mm-hmm.
our guilt and shame. That goes with that perfectionism that we just learn to be, as Karen said, the good little girls and sweet. But
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to ask for help, especially
Mm-hmm.
sisters. We do not
Right.
have to have this superwoman cape on all the time, because we are suffering in
Mm-hmm.
silence, and it
Amen.
shows in our bodies. It shows in
Mhm.
our weight gain. It shows in our hair loss. It shows from dysfunction. I can keep going on and on and
All the way
on.
back hurt, necks hurt. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's okay
Mm-hmm.
to ask for help. That makes somebody, to me, more human. But I feel because if we get that blueprint from when we were younger on being perfect, that we deny our own needs and wants, and we're so
Mm-hmm.
disconnected from our own self. And then we
Mm-hmm.
wonder why we're in these relationships. We don't even know what we want, but we know how to fix somebody else up.
And
Ooh.
that's it. You're absolutely right. And that, to me, you hit the nail on the head. It helps you identify what you want. Have you ever sat down and thought, like, one of the things I learned in my therapy session, 2 points I want to say. First point, way back when I said that I talked about my therapy, and the person was like, no, 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 don't talk about it. That, I'm sharing about my mental PTSD and stuff. Someone said to me, oh my goodness, you sharing your story, I can admit that I suffer from this, and that. That's
Right.
one reason to share your story. You liberate someone else. We operate out of
Mm.
two realms, in my opinion: love and fear. Love will allow you to continue to love and grow and build and surround yourself around other people to something positive. Fear will have you going in this doubt, hate, everything from that negative bucket. We can all attest to that. But if we get a licensed professional, someone to just talk to, we can learn how to start loving ourselves. And that's not a class in school, right? No one teaches,
Ooh, that's so true.
how to love yourself. And I believe that with our podcast, this is what we're opening up the door for people to do. Make a list, 5 things. And I don't know if people notice, because whenever somebody talk about me, you know, my emotions come up, I start crying and all this stuff, like it's doing now. Ugh. So I'm
It's
I'm a whip,
okay.
y'all. I'm a work in progress.
It's okay. You're human. This is what humans do. You're
But this
human.
is so important. Write 5 things that you love about yourself.
Mm.
And then after you do the
Mm.
exercise, ask yourself, was this easy?
Ooh.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then unpack that.
Mm.
Ooh.
And don't just say, I'm pretty, I'm smart. No, like, give some thoughts.
Dig deep.
Say it again, sis.
Dig deep.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dig deep. Give
And
your. Mm-hmm.
it's okay if you try to dig deep and you are challenged with it, because then you have a baseline on how can you get deep. And if you still are challenged, it's okay to ask for help. And anyone listening, I'm not talking about your traumatized girlfriends and we all trauma bonded
Right.
together. Okay.
Don't call that one. Say, yeah, girl, go to bring the vodka with you when you come.
Can I
No,
just
not.
say too that I know we want folks to dig deep because that's important, but because so many of us have so much negative talk about ourselves, it would be hard even for some women, particularly, to find 5 superficial things that they like about their
Yeah,
physical appearance.
that's
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
true.
Sometimes that's even hard for folks
it
to do,
is. It is.
because if we said the things out loud to other people that we say to ourselves,
Woo!
we would
So
never
true.
do it because we're unkind to ourselves sometimes,
Yeah,
and we would never be that unkind to other people.
yeah.
And you know
Oh,
how you
and
And
can
I
that
do
tell.
it too.
Me too, that inner critic. But you know what,
Yes,
how you can tell if you give someone a okay, so give me a compliment. It can be anything you see on me. Just say something
I
to
love
me.
your
you
locks.
have beautiful teeth.
Oh, see, you know, need to get them whitened. Oh my girl, I need to get these edges. Like there's always a compliment,
Yes.
and then you're
Yes.
counteracted with a negative, something negative about yourself, as opposed to us saying thank
Yes.
you. So
Yes.
you're right, and you can always tell because you're saying something very positive, and then we reply with something negative about our own selves.
Or you
Yep.
go past it, because Karen is saying, this is my daughter. She's good for me saying, she'll tap me on the shoulder. The word is thank you. And I'll
Yeah,
go, thank you. So again, I'm a work in progress. So everybody, I get it. I still struggle with compliments.
Ah.
I still struggle with, but I still to this, and I deflect. That's one of the things, avoidance.
Yep.
That's a term that you use a lot in therapy. And you,
Mhm.
well, not use, but they teach you how to do that. That's a symptom or byproduct of trauma, whatnot you avoid.
yeah,
And so, or mental, your mental wellness, that's a thing, avoidance. So I avoid those types of things, of someone saying you're cute or you're this or you that. Now and then it's so I'm borderline, right? Because the sister conceited. I love myself now. It's a my doctor be like, you didn't miss the boat on conceitedness, did you? I said, no. I mean, I love myself, but it's a weird thing
But
that
she's
I.
not comfortable hearing compliments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's and it's a huge difference, a huge difference. I don't like the spotlight whatsoever. I'm
right,
confident. I know that I'm God's child and God made no mistake, right? I'm God's favorite. But when it comes externally, yeah, no. Mm-mm.
right. I
Yeah.
So
understand.
just at my big age, I think it was in my late 40s where I really learned how to start accepting compliments. So now if you're like, "Oh girl, I love those that you wearing that dress, you wearing them pants."
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly.
Cause she was fly the other day, honey,
So
with her
that
little dress on, honey. She was looking good. I was like,
I probably was.
okay.
I
But
know you
it
was
took
when
me a
I
while
met
to do
you.
that because before somebody would be like, "Oh, I like those pants." I'd be like, "Oh, I had these for like 10 years."
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you
Yeah.
were
Girl,
So
fly when I met you
I
that day.
I thank you.
yeah.
She really
I,
was.
Thank you.
did y'all
I
did
get it.
y'all hear
I
that?
get
Did
it
y'all
from my
hear that?
mama.
You hear that? She said thank you, family. She said thank you.
Exactly.
I get it from my mama.
I know that's
Okay,
right. The
mama.
original queen. I know that's right.
But don't you
And
love therapy?
yeah,
Yeah, girl. I that's why I said, I think one day on our podcast or some on one of our platforms, I said we should do a shout out to therapist week. Like, I know I got a team. I know I have like 10 people. And we should give a shout out to therapists, because I absolutely love therapists. So shout out to therapists. Y'all watch this podcast. Give a shout out to y'all therapists and let people know that we love them and value them and what they doing, man. Because I mean, I
Absolutely.
done gave mine double hockey sticks, honey. I'm gonna tell you that now. Mine like, woo, this girl on some wheels right here. So we gotta give a shout out. I love them.
You said not the
made them
wheels.
almost want to quit.
Yeah, girl,
I
it's a trip.
enjoy therapy. I
But
love it. Game changer. I will not
mm,
date the same. And if I want, let me backpedal that.
Mhm.
I have the tools now to not date the same, because I don't want to say I'll never, because if it does happen, you know,
Mhm.
I have the tools now, and I won't entertain that. I do know for a fact because
Right.
I've experienced it. I don't entertain the anymore. And
Mhm.
when I mean that, meaning the red flags, I'm not
Yes.
ignoring
yeah,
them anymore. I'm fully recognizable, and I will acknowledge it. Oh well, it won't be that bad. But I would have
Mm,
never learned that if it wasn't through therapy. So I don't
mhm.
let me let everyone know
mm,
listening, and you can give your experience also. Therapy was not a walk in the park in
Woo.
rainbows and kittens and unicorns and the grassy knoll meadows. No.
Mm, mm.
Because when you have to look in at your shadow and have that mirror and look like, okay, let me start taking accountability as well. and also not going into the blame shifting, but actually taking
Mm.
responsibility for
Mhm.
my own healing. Because I can't help what people have done to me, but I can help my own self on how to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
So, right. So it just wasn't always perfect. And I tell this to people because I just stick through it. Just stick
Yeah.
through it. Because when you get on the other side, let me tell
Baby.
you, life is so, you go from a mindset of victim. Okay, well, now I'm a survivor. And it just, we don't even know that we can live as thriving individuals. And to think
Yes.
about it, it's like we're just like a leaf. That's how I was. Just with the wind blew this
Mm.
way, I'm just gonna go.
Mhm.
But I
Uh-huh.
took no agency for myself where I can take control of my life, right? So
Mhm.
it can be rough, but stick through it. Stick, and if you don't know how to stick through it, you stick through it through any of these toxic
The-
relationships you've been in.
okay.
And we sticking through. We know it's not good, but we gonna hope and pray and wish for the
Yeah.
same thing and put that
Mhm.
same energy and love into yourself. I'm telling you,
Amen.
a
You are
whole new
worthy.
portal opens up. And it's very ah, this is such a blessing talking to you both, because if I would have never gone to therapy, these kind of conversations, no
Wouldn't
ma'am,
be
they would have
happening.
never
Girl.
Oh
happened.
yeah.
Never.
Facts.
I have more of a connection talking to you all than people that I share the same DNA with, right?
Hmm.
Mm.
It's just not there. So I look at conversations like this and hold both of you in regard for what you all do, because this is
Mhm.
what a new family looks like. You don't have to come
Amen.
out of this, you don't have to have the same DNA. You really do
Amen.
I love
not
it.
at
Amen.
all. I've never talked,
Amen.
well, I'm gonna say never. I don't have the same conversations with certain I just don't, because
Mhm.
through my healing journey and
Mhm.
recognizing dysfunction and toxicity, I no longer fit the script of my family.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Okay.
They're not having it.
Okay. Okay.
They're just not. And you know what? I'm at a point now, it's okay. It's of course
It's okay.
hurtful because you want your
Yeah.
family. But am I gonna
But
sit
now,
here and argue back and forth? Or am I
yeah.
gonna have a meaningful conversation with Kat and Ken? Come on now.
All right. Because you know
Some
what?
people
Let's
are
say,
just
let we have
limited in their capacity of
Yes.
what they can do and where they can go.
And it, yeah.
yeah.
Some folks
Yes.
are
And
just limited.
So true.
and family, we family, you have DNA, and I know that we're accustomed to that family, but you know a family truly is a village. That's truly a family. Like I think we get so, because Lord knows I love my blood, but my family dynamic was shifted my whole life. So
Mm.
I've grown to appreciate not only the people we share the same parents and bloodline, but I've been fortunate enough to have people that I call family who we don't. And we've been together
Yeah.
since. So they're still my family. And so when God allows, I look at Karen as my sister. I
Yes.
know that this is somebody that's my ride or die. So we ain't from the same DNA, but we from the same DNA.
She's in my tribe.
You understand?
Yes.
Because my DNA go this way to my
Yeah.
Lord and Savior. You understand? So
Mhm.
sometimes, we gotta understand that God will take away and prune and then replace and put in, because it's a reason, a season, and a lifetime, honey.
Yes.
So, our family is here.
Absolutely.
We don't get to choose the blood, but we do get to choose the people who we spend time with. And over time,
Exactly.
we look, maybe this ain't the right thing to say, but I just say always pray for people. And I know how I have to deal with folks, because when I'm coming into a room, I'm protecting myself. I'm bringing in all my tools that I learned, just like a constructor, a
Mm.
contractor. I got my hammer, my screws, and all this stuff. So I got my patience. I have my strong nose. You know what I'm saying? I have my identifying my red flags, that discernment. I'm not, I think it was Eliana Van Zant. Am I saying her name right? I will not sit at a table where love is no longer served.
Yes.
How
That was in
about
Yala.
that?
That was in
Yeah.
Yala.
Yeah. So, just I wrote myself a declaration. So all these homework assignments, girl, we gotta go to we gotta talk about this on your show, Ursula B. But I wrote myself a declaration, Cat's Declaration of Independence.
Ah,
And so
I love it. Really?
yeah, yeah. And that was one of the things that's on there. Don't sit at a table where love is no longer served. So, some other things on it, but we could talk about that on your show. But yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah, but tools that we need when we walk in the room.
Yeah.
Make sure you have your stuff on and know what you want to do for yourself. And look, it's okay to be selfish when you loving on yourself. When you
Yeah.
know that there's other
Yeah.
people around you that's not doing you right. It's
That's a
okay.
self-preservation tool.
Mm, that's right.
Yeah. That's a
That's right.
Yeah.
self-preservation tool.
Yes, family.
Um,
If
So
you're not, go ahead,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just about to say, because as we talked about before, you have to pour from your saucer and not from your cup.
Girl,
Mm,
I
Your
love
overflow.
that.
Your folks should be getting your overflow, not from
yeah.
your cup. Because
Mm-hmm.
your cup is for
Woo!
you. They need to be
Yeah.
you need to be serving from the saucer so that they
Mm-hmm.
get, they can't take what's the best of you.
Mm-hmm.
Let them have your surplus,
I love
That's
and
right.
that.
and we as and that's something that we as black women, that's a shift, because we as black women weren't raised like that. Our
No.
mothers didn't do that. Our mothers sacrificed. And everybody wants now to talk about, oh, Big Mama didn't do this. Oh, well, back in the day, Big Mamas did this. And Big Mamas had high blood pressure. Big Mamas had diabetes. Big Mamas was sick because they
Mm-hmm.
were taking care of everybody else and
Mm-hmm.
in the house and in the neighborhood. But who was
Mm-hmm.
taking care of Big Mama?
And
That's
Big
right.
Mama, all those lessons that people say, well, I learned that from that's how I am. That's how my and they were a lot of
Some of it
them
was
were
toxic.
navigating through survival mode.
That's it.
So now
That's it.
we take that on like a family heirloom, and well, that's how it is. No, it does not. So when I hear people say that, well, that's what Big Mama did, and that's how I'm going to be. So you're just committed to not growing. Got it.
Right. I always ask,
Ooh.
um, I always ask, how's it working for you? When you
Mm.
when you bringing those pages forward,
Wait,
how's
did
it
you see
working
her
for you?
face when she said that?
Girl, I'm
That's
sarcastic.
real.
How's it working for you? Because y'all sit up
But
here talking about
yeah,
all the stuff you bringing forward. Because another thing, like Karen said, it's untreated trauma. It's not only is it survival, it's survival mode that somebody has taught to. You don't even have time to grieve. You don't have time to deal with your depression, your anxiety, or whatever those issues may be. You're just straight to running the race. You don't have time to tie your shoe because you in the race. You don't have time to deal with the pain of losing somebody or being
yeah,
hurt or being fired from a job or making minimum wage and can't take care, like whatever your issue is, you don't have time to even deal with it because you're in survival mode. And the other important
Exactly.
thing with your cup, what are you doing to refill your cup when you giving out, when your love is starting to go down? That's
you got to
self-care.
pour
That's
into
why
you.
we always
Absolutely.
right. And that's why we always talk about that. So that leads me to my question to you, Ursula. What do you do about your mental wellness? What's your routine? If you have a go-to, what are some things that you do to make sure that you're mentally well to go out and give love to the world?
Oh, that's a great question. So we've talked about one of the things throughout tonight's conversation, which are the boundaries.
Yes.
Mm.
That is huge for me. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of also, just knowing not to sit at a table, I don't even go to the function with some people.
Uh-oh.
So I don't have to worry about the table. And that's where I don't. And I
I
don't
got to
let
add
my
that to
I
my
love
list.
that.
yeah, it's no contact. And when it's no contact, that's part of my self-care. No contact means no contact. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't let anyone, well, that's a family member. You shouldn't be so no, it's for me. It's no
Mm-hmm.
contact.
That's right.
So that's
Mm.
those are huge for me. Those are superficial things. Of course the candles, baba bath, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But a little deeper, um, I like to meditate. I
Yes.
really do. I used to be into it a lot more, but I found myself over the past couple months getting really back into it. So it's helping with my focus because
Mm.
my brain is just pops off. Just I have
Mhm.
about 15 windows open in my brain. So I
Mhm.
realized it meant to meditate and just you too, you get it, right?
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
helps a lot to help me focus. That for me, that's needed for my self-care because my default is going to that auto pilot really easy.
Mhm.
So it's just to slow down. I love to play tennis. That's part of my self-care as well. Yes, tennis. During the pandemic, I started a garden. So I have a garden, a container garden,
Mhm.
and I love to go out there. I'm looking at my plants now and in my indoor plants as well. You give certain things touch them. They're
Mhm.
Mm,
living
Life.
everything as
yeah.
well. It is life. What else do I like? I love having conversations like this. This is part of my self-care as well.
Mhm.
Seriously. It's part of my self-care. My podcast is part of my self-care because I learn a lot. People always
Mhm.
make not in a facetious way, but they make fun of me because they said that they could make a reel of me when I listen to my guests and I'm learning. I'm like, I'm so animated, like, what? What? But I'm learning in real time. So that's part of my self-care as
Yeah.
well. Going to my group therapies every Tuesday, I learn something new about myself every Tuesday. I would have
Mm.
I never experienced that. I didn't even
Mhm.
know myself. Forget about the cup and the salsa.
Wow.
No,
Mhm.
now my head is always pinging. Like what else?
Mhm.
And it can be a little nuance. That's part of my self-care journey, and I'm very faithful with it. It's just part of my routine. I know where I'm going to be every Tuesday evening, and
Mhm.
I meet several women like yourself, and
Mhm.
so we don't have a hot seat. There's a love seat, but
Yes.
just
Yes.
listening to what other women go through because it is for sisters,
Mhm.
and the borrowed benefits that I
Mhm.
get is part of my self care because there's no judgment. You can hear some of
Yes.
the situations that people are going through. No one is judging and think trumping their trauma over another. It's a healing
Mm.
circle. That's part of my self-care.
Or negating your experience.
Mm.
Absolutely. You know what? It's so funny you said that because in our group, and I've done it as well, negate the experience, but then that
Mhm.
goes to that default of putting ourselves in a box. We don't have
Mm.
anyone else doing it because we're doing it to ourselves. So
Mhm.
we hold each other accountable and we'll say, no,
Okay.
Karen, you just said this. No,
Right.
how does that make you feel? Oh,
Right.
well, I went, no, 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 no. How does it make you feel? But
Mhm.
we're learning to feel and hold ourselves accountable and hold each other accountable. You're right. There's no negating the experience because
That's
it's
right.
everyone's own experience.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I love
Beautiful.
that.
Beautiful.
Black
May I
girl.
mention one more thing?
Go ahead,
Absolutely.
girl.
So, speaking of my group therapy, one of the our facilitator, matter of fact, I think it was you, Karen, when you listened to the my podcast about love addiction.
Yes.
The therapist I had on Sarita
Ah.
Yvonne.
Mhm.
Yes. So
Runs the
her,
group.
excuse me,
She runs the group.
she does.
Get out of
She,
here.
yes,
Mm.
ma'am. She does.
That was a
And so
good
there's,
podcast.
That is.
yes. And she's been on so let me tell you, since you said that,
We need to put.
Rita and I are going to do a live in-person podcast. And we
What?
actually were talking about
Ooh.
expanding on the love addiction topic. So I'll give you all, I would love
Ooh.
for y'all to share it with the listeners. It's November
Yes.
Yes,
4th.
yes.
It's here in
November
Atlanta.
4th.
Yes, I will
Okay.
send out the flyer when it's ready. But we are,
Send me the flyer so I can post it.
yeah, I would love to. And I'd love for you all to come out. We have a max of 50 to 55 people at the venue. So, what we're talking about now, since you already had a touch of Sarita Yvonne, we're
Uh-huh.
getting all the way pulling back some
All
layers.
right.
Wow.
All right. All right.
Yes,
I
peeling that
love
onion
that.
layer back.
I
Yes.
love that.
Yeah, we
And what
definitely
was
got to
that date
put that
again?
on our radar.
Excuse me?
What was the date again?
November 4th.
November 4th.
It's the
All right. Oh,
first
Kat, you're gonna be in crunch
Saturday.
time.
Yeah, it's the first Saturday of November. So
November.
I'm in an election. And November the 7th is election. So that's like my last
That's a big
Push.
weekend.
get out the vote push.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
yep, yep,
Yes.
I won't
yep.
make any promises, but I definitely, and I don't know, but I it's a powerful thing. November the 4th in Atlanta. Make sure you send us the information. Tell
Absolutely.
everybody,
Go
tell
ahead.
everybody how they can get in contact with you, girl.
I sure will. So everyone, if you just type Black girls getting their shift together, it comes up on all platforms. Look me up on YouTube, same name, search it, subscribe so that and hit the bell button so you know
Yeah,
when I drop an episode, you're gonna know and get some healing. We're gonna heal these wounds. And so you can learn something new about yourself. All social media, it's Black girls getting their shift together, as well as the audio podcast. You can contact or reach me if you want to listen to the podcast on Spotify. Now as of recent Amazon Music as well.
Go
So
ahead.
just put in, oh yeah, just put in Black girls getting their shift together. And I'm proud to say I'm almost at 100,000 downloads on the
What?
audio podcast.
oh
Yes.
Go
wow.
ahead, girl. Woo!
Yes.
Turn
Yes.
Oh,
up.
nice. Nice.
Congratulations, girl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
hitting it.
beautiful.
I'm getting there. I'm
That
getting
is
there. I'm
beautiful.
this close to it. So
Yeah.
hopefully I'll get there in time for the November event. That's going to be even another layer
Okay.
of celebration. So that's where you
Nice.
can reach me.
Nice.
Girl,
Yes,
I
that is
love it, love it,
wonderful.
love it. Girl,
So
you are the bomb diggity.
Black girls getting their shift together. You can find Ursula B on Twitter at Gemstones 1976 0659. She's on Facebook at BGGTST, which is for Black girls getting their shift together. And then you can also find her on Instagram at BLK Girls Get
It's a
in
long name.
THEIR shift the number two together.
And you can also do
But if you
BGGTST.
BGGTST, Black girls
Yeah.
getting their shift together. So
If
look for
y'all
her
can't,
on all social platforms. Kat, I look, and in the words of my mother, I ain't studying you.
I know. If y'all listening, I know y'all can't see me, but girl, I am cracking up. This is like long, honey. Yeah, crooked letter, I like what you say?
Humpback,
Never
humpback,
mind her.
PP.
If you Google Black girls getting their shift together, you will find her on all of her platforms. This Ursula B. Thank you so much for
This
joining
was
us.
good.
This was
Thank
a
you, girl.
wonderful conversation.
Thank
Absolutely,
you.
absolutely.
And
And
for
y'all
those,
keep doing what you do in the community. These talks are wonderful. You both are wonderful. I love your
thank you.
transparency and open and human, the humanity in you both.
Yeah.
And that's what Black women need to see.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. I really
We
do.
so really do, and loving how we all have to help uplift one another on our shows too. So that's what that's all about also as well, sharing our stories and uplifting one another. So thank you for
Yes.
being on our show.
Yes.
Yes.
And as always, thank you for joining us on this episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, we are impacting the world one conversation at a time.